I'm the director of the Joan and Ralph Lane Center for Catholic Studies and Social Thought. And on behalf of Vesper Society and the Lane Center at USF, I want to welcome you to this afternoon's event. I'm just moving and pointing around here because I want to space the microphone here. Our event today is the beginning of a series, a three-part series titled Interfaith Dialogue and Justice, Exploring Strategies for Global Development and Peace. The Lane Center is happy to be presenting this series in collaboration with Vesper Society, whose mission is a compassionate world which promotes human dignity and enhances human potential. More information about this series, I don't want to go into all of the details on that. They're on this card, which are over on the side table over there, the three-part series. The vision of Vesper Society and the mission of USF interact in very exciting ways. As a Jesuit university, our mission calls us to promote and engage dialogue and understanding on new frontiers. This series, in collaboration with Vesper Society, will build on the many ways interfaith dialogue is taking place in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'd like to introduce the Vice President of Vesper Society, Sabrina Motley, who's going to say a little bit more about Vesper Society and then introduce our distinguished speaker, Sabrina.
Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, good afternoon. Beautiful day in San Francisco. It's good to be together. On behalf of Vesper Society's board and staff, I really want to thank you for joining us as we launch this public series on religious pluralism as a powerful strategy for social change. We're really happy to join the Lane Center, and I really want to thank Michael Duffy and Julia Dowd, who's here somewhere. Thank them they've been really wonderful partners, and we look forward to the other events featured in the calendar. I also need to thank Peter Novak, Associate Dean for Arts and Humanities, for making the initial introduction, as well as to the University President, Steve Prevet, for supporting our work together. As a faith-based social justice foundation, Vesper Society has a long tradition of facilitating opportunities for people of diverse backgrounds to discuss critical social issues. Of particular interest to us is activating interfaith dialogue, or as Eboo Patel says, and as well as his colleague and mentor, the wonderful Diana Act, moving from religious tolerance to religious pluralism. This is beautifully witnessed by the young people at Interfaith Youth Corps. Every day, they, and the people who mentor them, make the world a more just place by dispelling stereotypes and myths, and building bridges and possibilities. It is fitting that this series start with the opportunity to learn more about the inspired and inspiring vision of Eboo Patel. As an author, activist, and importantly, a father, his work aligns deeply held principles and shared values of religious freedom, public service, and pluralism. Thank you for being here, and I really want to ask you to join me in welcoming the wonderful Eboo Patel.
So there's a great line in the work of Robert Frost, home is the place that when you come, they have to take you. And coming to the Bay Area and coming to USF and coming to a college campus are, for those three reasons, feeling like coming home for me. And I want to use that as kind of a format for the talk that I'm going to give. What it feels like to be on a college campus, what it feels like to be in a Catholic space which is unafraid of its own particularity and invites the conversation of multiple particularities, which we at the Interfaith Youth Corps call pluralism. And what it feels to be back in the Bay Area, where the idea of the Interfaith Youth Corps was born because of the robust interfaith movement that is here. The movement that in so many ways birthed us, that supported us, that inspired us, and which we continue to have many, many friends who are here today. I want to begin with what it feels like to be back on a campus. When I was 17 and I went to the University of Illinois from Chicago, it's just 2.5 hours south, it felt like the world was brand new. And it wasn't because Champaign is that different from Glen Ellen, where I grew up. You know, Marcel Proust once said that the true journey of discovery is not in seeing new landscapes, it's in developing new eyes. It's that I think that there is a magic set of years that occurs in late adolescence and early 20-somethingness, that college campuses are exceptional at accelerating, which fits you with new eyes. And so I'm sure I saw homeless people before I stepped foot at the University of Illinois, but I don't think I ever asked their stories. And I'm sure that I passed Vietnam vets before I was 17 years old, but I don't think I ever sat down with them. And that's precisely what I did at the University of Illinois. Ask the stories of these people on Green Street who sat outside panhandling, who froze in the winter and boiled in the summer and didn't have 1/100th of the luxuries that so many of us students had, and yet seemed to have a kind of spiritual equanimity around them. I felt this sense of what Ram Dass and Krishnamurti and others call cosmic unity. Right? What is it that connects me with that person? And why have I not seen that connection before? And I felt that connection most powerfully through service. That when I was with them at the men's shelter, or at the women's transition shelter, or at the Salvation Army, or at the nursing home, it wasn't so much a one-way relationship of me offering to them. It was a two-way relationship building process. And it was the University of Illinois, in that space at 17 years old, that got me thinking that way in the first place. And to quote from a great Bay Area poet, I think what was happening to me was what Jordan said, is I am a stranger learning to worship the strangers around me. And I would wake up in the morning and think to myself, I walk in the world in a new way, even though it feels like the same world. I ask new questions of it and myself. I desire new types of connections. And so I walked down this path of justice and joy, so to speak. And it could have gone, frankly, a variety of dangerous ways. Because I began to ask questions that a lot of people ask connecting service and justice, which is to say, why is it that it seems that we have a system that continually generates poor people? Why is that built into the system? Whose favor is that in? Is it because poor folks have less talent than wealthy folks? Or is it because they have less opportunity? And who doles out opportunity? And why is that fair? And is this the America that I was taught to believe in high school history books? And that question, that justice question, was rolling in my head at the same time as another question was rolling, which is, where am I getting these questions? Why am I feeling this connection? There's a wonderful line in the work of J.M. Coetzee. Each of us comes into the world carrying the memory of justice. Where did that memory come from? I mean, I felt it in my pores, I felt it in my heart, I felt it in my bones. I didn't know much about its source. And one day, out of the blue, and some people call these angels, somebody said to me, have you heard of the Catholic worker movement? I hadn't. You know who Dorothy Day is? I didn't know. I'm like, well, tell me about it. The person said, well, it's part anarchist movement for political radicals, part spiritual journey for wayward Catholics, and part community for all who enter. And as luck or God may have it, there's a Catholic worker house here in Champaign-Urbana called St. Jude's House, and you should go. So I did. And I spent a lot of time in the first couple of years of my college education in spaces of social service. I noticed that when we walked in, there was a reception area, a sign-in sheet, occasionally a guard, and there were clients, and there were servers. When I walked into St. Jude's Catholic Worker House, the first thing that struck me was I couldn't tell who the clients were and who the servers were. No sign-in sheet, no armed guard, no receptionist. And I kind of walked through the living room where kids from all different backgrounds were playing. I walked straight into the kitchen. And the first question that somebody asked me was, are you staying for dinner?